Hey everyone, we're back with your mental health awareness. I am joined today again with Travis of I Got Your Six First Responders and Allie of Allie Jade Hair. Guys, how you doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
Well, thank you. Travis, how's it going?
Oh, it's going.
Yeah,
My recharge day.
there you go. Good. So we want to kind of talk today, right, Allie? Travis, we talked a little bit in our group chats about anxiety. We shared an article on the page. Actually, the title of the article I have it up is "This is how you love someone with anxiety." We thought it was a really good article to get an idea of what it's like to be around somebody, whether it's in a friendship, relationship of any kind, who has anxiety, and some things that you can do to help. So, with all that said, Allie, it was a fairly long article. Why don't you kick it off? Give us, let's talk about a couple of the main points that you found, and let's kind of just go from there and have that discussion around it.
Perfect, awesome. So the first one on the actual list in the article kind of stood out to me the most, surprisingly, and it's probably because it's, to me, the most important. And the headline is, "Remember, they're worth fighting for." So that person that you're dealing with, it's obviously it's tough on both people, especially the person that's at, the receiving end of that stress coming off of us. And
Right.
you have to kind of remember why you're with that person, whether it's in a relationship or it's family member. You have to remember like what put you in that person's life and why you're choosing to stay there. And if you're going to choose to stay there, you got to remember that that person, somebody important to you, and you have to do your part to kind of help take care of them, because that's kind of the commitment we make, either as partners in a relationship or as friends,
Right.
your family, obviously. So it's, you kind of got to like find your place, and you got to remember why, that kind of like stuck out to me a little bit.
Okay. So, Travis, let me ask you your thoughts. So she just brought it up. First point I'm looking at, remember they're worth fighting for. There's scenarios, obviously, we all create in our heads, I think, regardless. I think for somebody, myself, with anxiety, we tend to go to the worst case scenario. What is something that you're, kind of a takeaway or something that you would add to that along the lines of, making sure we're there for the person?
That person has anxiety, never push or force them to do something they don't want to do. Kind of the shut up and listen type thing. When they're trying to talk or explain something, don't cut them off and be like, well, I do this, I do that. Just let them get everything out, because it may not be that often that they actually open up. So if you keep cutting them off, it's going to annoy them, and then they're just not going to
kind of not a good idea, right? So,
and then just try to, meet in the middle and figure out, all right, what can we do? When you have these panic attacks, what do you want me to do? Like leave you alone, let you get through it? Or do you need like a reminder of sit down, breathe, it'll be all right? Do you need some assistance? Or so definitely listen and learn.
Perfect. So, I think that's just some, great food for thought. So Allie, Travis kind of hit it on the head, right? You just sit there and listen. You never can listen too much.
Yes,
so,
and that's like one of the things that the article mentions too, is you have to kind of let them sometimes go off on their tangent and kind of throw themselves into whatever it is that they're trying to process. And even if it's not a pretty way that they're kind of, releasing that energy that they're feeling, those vibes, whatever the case may be, if it's a fight, if they're arguing with you. I know me personally, like when I'm having that type of anxiety and I'm deep in the depression, I'm just having a rough vibe, like I tend to pick a fight, and I'll just be snarky and I'll have an attitude, and I don't even notice that I'm doing it. Right. So it's, like at that point in time, like, my fiance's kind of had to learn, it's, don't ask me the biggest thing I feel like, he's like, what's wrong? Nothing. There's nothing wrong. Like, that's kind of how it works. And, he'll just sit back and he'll be like, okay. And he won't push it. And then it's almost like it's just an explosion of words. Like everything just starts pouring out. And I just need him to just sit there and listen. And he does. And it kind of works for me. So that's kind of like a key point. Don't like push me to talk it out until I'm ready. Because that's the worst thing. Because then I'm going to immediately shut down. Okay. So like Travis, like literally like, right, you're right, like hit the nail on the head with that one. It's like one of the biggest pieces in the article. It's like the second topic that I was going to circle to is, don't push, like kind of let them have their space, and we'll open up to you and they'll open up to, them, and then vice versa.
All right. Now, so let me ask you both this, Travis, you brought that up, don't kind of, don't cut them off, but don't, and Allie, you're saying, don't pry, you'll open up, so at what point do you, and if there may not be a correct time, right? And it may not ever be a time, but, we don't want to pry. We don't want to push somebody to open up to us. They're going to do it in their own time, in their own way. And we just want to make sure we're there and listen. Do you think there's ever a time where it's kind of like, okay, we do need to start kind of pushing this person to talk a little bit because something bad can happen? Or do you think it's just kind of let it go and just make sure you're there and they know you're there for when they're ready?
Yeah, I mean, even do research on your own time, so you can be that better half. Research what they're going through, read about it, and understand about it a little bit more.
Okay.
Definitely. Earlier today when I was with Amy, one of the things that we had talked about was kind of like, in the sense, like when to not, because we had talked about, like, when you know somebody, who either opens up to you, or you get the feeling that, there may be suicidal attempts, or they might hurt themselves. It's kind of like knowing when to step in and what to say. And it's, you kind of, I don't want to say like you have to be strategic with it, like, but we kind of talked about how you don't want to push them too much, because they can shut down completely and you can kind of push them over the edge. You kind of have to learn that balance. And that was, it's something, me personally, I've not ever been close to on that end of things, of being the support person side of it. And I isolated myself during my own, lows that way in life. So I didn't have like a person to reach out to. But like Amy said, like so many things that it's like training almost. Like you have to educate yourself on how to be that support person sometimes. Because if you don't do it the right way, you can push them unintentionally in the wrong direction sometimes.
So talking about support, having a support system, Travis, I want to ask you first, what is your biggest support system, your go-to when you just need somebody to listen, or you just, whether it's to vent to them or for advice or whatever, who do you surround yourself with as that support system that you can rely on?
I definitely have a small group of friends that have helped me through my situations. And in my second podcast, it was called her My Sister, Haley 9. She's my go-to when I'm feeling down or need a vent or need to talk or something. She's always there to let me say what I need to say, and we check up on each other. She goes through her issues as well, the stress and nonstop at work and everything. So I'll check up on her as well. So you just have your group where you just, all right, let me just check up on them. There might be a few days where you won't hear from them. Everyone has their own life, doing their own things, but it's always good to, check in, make sure they're doing good, hanging in there. If they need to vent, let them know, hey, go ahead and vent. So.
All right, so that's good. And what about you, Allie? You're recently engaged, and we know, those of us who know Scuba know he's a great guy. But outside of that, who would you say is your biggest support system right now when you need it?
So I'm lucky enough to have my best friend that lives with us, and we've been friends for years, and we've been friends for a long time prior to living together, and then obviously the last 3 years living together now. And no matter, and we're very different, but we're very much the same. And she's a lot younger than me. She's just turned 26, so I'm a little bit kind of ahead of some things in life, and I've experienced some things that she hasn't yet. But at the same time, she's such a good grounding person for me, because she's, no matter what, like, she's there. I can talk to her. She's going to listen. She'll take my side when I need somebody to just support me and tell me that I'm okay and I'm not crazy. And then she'll also put me in check when I need to. Like, she's the first one to, knock me back on my butt when I need, to be put in check. And she's always like that go-to. And, sometimes with friends, it's tough. I just lost one of, my best friends of 10 years out of nowhere. Boyfriend didn't like, our friendship and made her pick. And it was probably the most devastating thing to me, because it was at that point in time that I realized, like, somebody who I thought I could always depend on really wasn't. And it's hard the older you get to find those friends and that support system, that person. So for me, like, I have that. She's been that one constant no matter what. So that's kind of like my go-to. And Hopefully she's not allowed to ever leave me, ever.
So there you go. You guys heard it, that they're going to be roommates forever, even once Allie's married. So I don't know if that's a healthy thing. Let me just throw that out
Tried. I keep trying.
there.
I've been told no multiple times.
So yeah, that's probably a good idea. So let me kind of ask you guys both this, and whoever wants to answer first, by all means. Allie, you kicked it off with the very first thing we see is remember the person's worth fighting for, and we kind of jumped into it. You just have to listen, and we talked about your guaranteed go-to something's wrong. How many times have either one of you heard you're overreacting when you're just kind of, I don't want to say spiraling, but for lack of a better word, you're kind of in that mode of you're just spiraling downwards. You don't know where to go. You don't know what's going on. How many times have you heard somebody say you're overreacting?
Allie.
I couldn't even count at this point. And I think the difference is like, it's the people who you sometimes align yourself with. You kind of have to, like, are you aligning yourself with somebody who's just very toxic, who's not going to problem solve with you? Because your overreacting is a defense mechanism. That's like something that you would say in defense to something. And even though it may seem like you're being attacked by us, it's not always the case. Like, we're trying to vent, and we may not portray it in the proper way, in the nicest way, whatever the case may be, but in our minds in that moment, like that's the biggest thing to us, no matter how small it is to somebody else. You can't say that you're overreacting, because you don't rule what goes on in my mind. You don't rule my emotions. My emotions are not yours. Like, that's mine, and that's not anybody else's place to take. So to invalidate somebody's feelings with a phrase like that, like, to me, that's a trigger phrase. And I was in a relationship for 7 years with somebody incredibly toxic, and that was always his first go-to. And it would be like in the calmest of moments when I'd be opened up with him about how I was feeling emotionally with our relationship, my job, whatever the case may be. Anything was always, you're overreacting.
Okay.
So it came to the point where I realized, like, that was not a cohesive relationship for me to be in. It was toxic. And now that I've put myself in a relationship where I never hear those words, and it's because instead of me overreacting, he will say to me, I know that you're having a moment right now, whatever the case may be. Like, I'm here to talk if you want to talk. I'm here to give you your space. Like, instead of like making me feel like I'm doing something wrong and something's wrong with me and I'm being ridiculous, it's giving me an opportunity to work through that, because you can't put a limit on somebody's feelings and emotions.
Sure. All right. So Travis, what about you? How many times have you heard that, or and kind of what's your reaction or response when you hear somebody tell you you're overreacting?
Well, my trigger word is or phrase, just get over it. I've been told that numerous times. It's like, I was about to cuss, but it's like, oh, just get over it. I never thought of that. Oh, thank you for that amazing advice. You know what? I'm over it. It's maybe that's their way of helping, or how they get through things. But if it was that simple, I made it this far, 37 years in life. If I knew just to get over it, then hey, life would have been easier. But sometimes we know we just can't get over it. Some people can, I envy them, but there's times where I need to go through my steps to get over it.
Sure.
So yeah, that, and you're overreacting. I would never say that to someone, because you don't know what they've been through to make it seem like they're overreacting. Like, to them, they may not think they're overreacting. To someone else, yeah, but you don't know what they've been through. So it's like, okay, well, why are you feeling this way? What really triggers you to get you this mad about something? So just kind of, you got to understand what that person's going through, what their past is. So it's always, back in my police officer days, there's times where I let people talk and they're screaming, explaining stuff. They're not screaming at me, attacking me, or anything like that. But people are walking by like, why is this cop letting this person talk to him like that? Well, that's just how they need to communicate. Get it off your chest. So they're screaming, they're venting. And then once they get it out, now they're calm. And then now they're listening to me, and we're fixing the situation. Do you need to go see a doctor? Do you need me to Baker Act you so you can be locked up for 3 days getting mental help? Do you need to go to a regular doctor? So sometimes you need to, some people will just deal with it being quiet. Some people just need to talk a bunch or yell. So each person is different. So just got to sit back and observe.
Yeah, I think that's some good information and definitely good advice, right? We talk about it. You know, you're overreacting is definitely a trigger phrase. Ali, you've heard it. For you, it's just get over it, Travis. And I think we all have that trigger word or trigger phrase that's going to set us off. I think the important thing to remember is if somebody has anxiety, it's it's not necessarily you, right? You know, the person they're with, their friend, their spouse, or significant other. It's something that we're fighting ourselves, and we have an overactive brain, I'll say, right, for lack of a better way of putting it. And, you know, we always think of every possible scenario that can play out. Our brains always take it to the worst end. So, you know, what I do want to do is you know, that article, Ali, Travis, we talked about it prior, and, you know, it was a fairly long article, had, I think, 16 or 17 points of what to expect. So what I want to do is, let's pick one more, Ali. Pick one more. Let's talk about that, and, you know, let's pick up in a second video, so that way, because it's a lot. We can go on for a long time about anxiety on this article, I think, right? So let's pick one more. Let's dissect out one last point that you find that you think is one of the more important ones that we should be talking about, and then we'll pick up with another video either later in the week or next week. How's that sound?
Yeah, love it. So why don't we do? One of the key points was, remember, it's not that they don't trust you, it's just that they're scared.
Okay.
And I think that kind of, we can tie that into the topics that we discussed today, because I think there's a lot of communication that needs to happen in order to tie all of that in together, that's going to create that trust with that person. And it could be, I mean, like, PTSD could be a number of different things. It could be, you know, trauma that you went through as a child with your parent. It could be, you know, dealing with, you know, somebody who's, you know, in recovery, somebody who, you know, is struggling with that. There could be so many different things that they could have struggled with. And so it's not that they don't trust you. There's a lot of, with dealing with that level of anxiety, you overthink everything, and you tend to jump to the, like, worst case scenario, and, you know, the worst thing. And you have to just kind of realize where that stands and kind of know, you know, where that line is. And it's a fine line sometimes, but it's sometimes it's a tough one, you know. And it's not that I don't trust you. I'm just scared that this history is going to repeat itself, or I'm scared I'm going to make the same mistakes I did again. So I don't trust myself, and I'm scared with myself, and that's portraying that I don't trust you in this relationship, or, you know, I don't, you know, I kind of had a situation with my mom at one point where I almost felt like I couldn't open up to her, you know, about things, because I didn't trust myself, and I didn't, you know, so it kind of like I put a wall up. So, and it was kind of like, you know, you don't trust me, you don't talk to me. It's not that I don't trust you. Like, I'm scared either for myself, or I'm scared that, you know, history is going to repeat itself. And, you know, it may not be my current relationship's fault, but maybe it's, you know, something that happened in a past relationship that I just haven't gotten past yet, whether I'm aware of that or not. So I think that that's a really big, crucial thing to kind of keep in mind, because, you know, if you listen really well, you have good communication, you know, you're not pushing them to, you know, talk when they don't want to talk. All these things that we've talked about today kind of all tie into that, building that trust. So that way that person doesn't have to deal with those fears and portray it in that way.
Okay. So you brought up a good point. One of the very first things you said was PTSD can affect us in different ways. It could be childhood trauma. It could be anything. So Travis, former military, former LEO, PTSD is a very real thing. We know about that. We know that it is. You and I have talked about it previously in other videos. When we talk about, it's not that we don't trust you, it's that we're scared, and PTSD can play a part in that. What would you, if anything, would you tend to agree that yes, PTSD plays a big role in that? Is it more than just that? Are we saying PTSD, or, you know, we are scared, and, you know, we're scared and we're using that as a, you know, I hate to say as a kind of that scapegoat, but, you know, or what, you know, kind of how would you respond in any way as far as a trust issue?
Well, yeah, PTSD is a huge topic. I mean, trickle down into different scenarios. It doesn't just have to be a first responder, military, or thing like that. It could be the way someone grew up. They could have, you know, been poor growing up, living on the streets, and the PTSD of always looking over their shoulders. or abusive relationships, even a car crash or situations like that. I mean, people have PTSD from dogs. They're terrified of dogs because they got attacked by a dog when they were a kid, and they still remember that as if it was yesterday.
Right.
But yeah, definitely PTSD comes in all shapes and forms and can definitely affect someone trusting other people, opening up, feeling judged, I think is a huge thing. Like if I meet someone and I'll tell them this, and that, then it might be like, well, I don't want to date you. You're a mess, and something like that. So a lot of people still have that trust opening up and just keep to themselves. And then it makes it even worse because you're bottling everything inside when you should be venting. So whenever I meet someone new, I kind of tell them quick little rundown, what I've been through and why I don't go out that much. And now I can say, just listen to my first podcast episode and it kind of thumbs up what I've been going through and what brought me here today. So it's just easier. Just listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
But definitely.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
But definitely,
so for those, go ahead.
You should be able to trust someone. And if you meet someone, you want to date them and they're just kind of blow you off when it comes to you talking or opening up, then that should be a red flag. You should move on because that person's not going to help you. They're just going to make it worse.
Yeah. And so that kind of goes to what you were talking about, Ali, right? Toxic relationships. And let me be very clear on something. You know, we all talk about toxic relationships and it's not just a significant other, right? Toxic relationships can friendships can fall within families. So, you know, one of the things that I always, and you always see this, right? And it floats around social media, it's online. I'm tired of, and personally, I will say, I'm tired of hearing it's family, get over it, right? Or it's family, you have to talk, it's the holidays, talk to your, no, if your family is toxic or you have, you know, whether it's anxiety, whether you just, there's something that you don't feel right about, or just you're going to have some sort of bad taste in your mouth, right? After you see them or talk to them. You know, my biggest advice is you don't have to talk to somebody or interact with people just because they're family. You know, just because you went to school with somebody for 15 years, I don't think that, you know, I want to normalize. I think that should be normalized. You should not be forced to, because it's a family member, somebody you've known since you were little, and 15, 20 years later, that's just not, that's not the case. So, you know, all that said, so Matt, I'm sorry, Travis, you had talked, I'm looking at another note, I'm sorry. You had mentioned your podcast, listen to your first podcast. So for those of you who have not taken a moment to listen to Travis's podcast, I suggest you get on there. It's on, if I remember correctly, iTunes podcasts, right? It's on there. So you can look them up, check those out. I've listened to them. I got to tell you, you know, it was difficult for myself to open up about a lot of mental health issues that I battle. Listening to, you know, what Travis has gone through, your story, Ali, you shared with us, you know, a few weeks ago, and you put it out there on Facebook. And, you know, that was kind of a big thing for us, that if other people can do this, so can I. You know, kind of a shameless plug for Ali. If anybody who is in the area needs their hair done, please hit her up, look at her Facebook. It's Ali Jade Hair on Facebook, if I remember correctly. But yeah, check her out. You know, definitely check out Travis's podcast. I'm going to leave everybody with kind of a quick little thing here. We here at YMHA did get a shirt made. So a good friend of mine, her company had gone out of their way to help us out and created. So I'm actually wearing it tonight. It's our logo. So if you guys see that little symbol in the middle there, it's very simple. The way that we came up with that was it stands for courage. So anybody with battling any type of mental health issue, it takes courage to stand up, right? It's not weakness to admit that you need help. So it takes more courage to do that. On that note, as we finish out for the night, Ali, Travis, either one of you or both of you, if you want, any last remarks, any last thought of the day, that, if you will, that you want to leave our viewers with?
Travis, I'll let you take first lead.
Well, like I was telling you guys before we recorded, sometimes you just need a day where you take care of yourself. You're helping others and working a lot. If you have your business on the side, it's a lot of steps you got to do. Sometimes you just need a day for you. So, you know, turn your phone on silent. If you want to sleep all day and nap and just be a bum, that's all right. That's usually how my Mondays are. Turn my phone on silent. I'll get up, let the dogs out, check my phone, see if there's any important messages on there, go back to bed or eat. That's my recharge day, because the rest of the week it's 100 miles an hour. So I used to not do that, and I would just get beaten down, and just my motivation to be shot. So Mondays, find a day where it's strictly for you. So it could be being a bum, or it could be, hey, I'm gonna go get a pedicure, or I'm gonna go do this. But have a day definitely for you.
Good, good. I like that. I think it's important to take a you day and do whatever you want to do. Be a bum, go out and pamper yourself, whatever it is. So I like that. Allie, what are your final thoughts for the night?
So I don't know if I necessarily have a thought. I kind of want to piggyback off of what Travis said with a little bit of maybe an at-home homework assignment for us on here, and then as well as maybe everybody listening. Do one thing this week that is for you. Like Travis said, whether it's like a relaxed day, sleeping through it, like, no alarms, maybe going for a manicure, pedicure, a blow dry, or do something for yourself. Give yourself a self-care day, a self-care hour, and then go on our page and tell us what you did. Like, I want to hear what everybody listening did for themselves this week, and we'll see where that goes, and maybe we'll circle back on some things next week, and kind of just make sure you make some time for yourself, at least just one little bit this week.
I like that. I think that's some great advice. I definitely like that. We want to hear from everybody, right? This is what makes us do what we do. It's not just us sharing our stories and giving our advice. It's really about getting everybody involved. So take your day, tell us what you did, drop us a line here, Facebook. If you have questions or you want to make a suggestion, but you want to remain anonymous, that's totally okay. Send us a private message to our Facebook page, YMHA. You'll find it there. Send us that message. Just let us know you want to remain anonymous, because we don't want to go and just name drop if you didn't want us to. That being said, we're going to be looking for everybody's topics coming up here over the next week. We'll be back with another video. All of that said, I heard a song today on my way home. It's going to sound really cheesy. So I was listening to, yes, I listen to country music. It's very odd. A Kenny Chesney song. And it is, his line says, happy is as happy does. We have to remember we make our own happiness, and nobody else can create that for us, right? So do whatever it is that makes you happy, that relaxation day, that recharge day like Travis has, and whatever you do on that one day for yourself makes yourself happy. Make sure that you're creating your own happiness every day. Guys, with all that said, anybody else want to add anything before we wrap up?
That's it.
Go get your booby checked. It's Cancer Month, right?
There you go. Oh, yes, it is Breast Cancer Awareness. Guys, thank you for that reminder.
Good thing I'm not on camera.
Yeah, we saw part of it, not a lot. So on that note, guys, have a great night. We look forward to talking to everybody soon.